Have you ever wondered why some people seem to twist every conversation, making you feel like you're the problem, even when you know you're not? What if the real trap isn't what they say, but how they silently pull you into reacting? Because here's the truth. Manipulators don't need to win arguments. They just need you to lose control. But when you master yourself, you break the game completely. In this video, you'll learn 7 powerful Stoic strategies to protect your mind, hold your frame, and outsmart toxic people without saying a single unnecessary word. If you're ready to reclaim your peace and stop being emotionally hijacked, make sure to subscribe to the channel because this is just the beginning. Number 1. Silence as a weapon. The first strategy may sound simple, but it's the one most people fail to master. It's the strategy of silence, not the weak kind of silence that comes from fear or submission. No, I'm talking about the kind of silence that radiates control, the kind that feels heavy in the air, the kind that forces manipulators to face their own discomfort. You see, manipulators thrive on one thing: your reaction. They live for that moment when you get pulled into defending yourself, over-explaining, or trying to prove that you're a good person. But the harsh truth is, they're never looking for understanding. They're looking for control. And your reaction is their fuel. When you take that fuel away, the game starts to fall apart for them. Imagine they throw out an accusation, twist your words, or make you feel like you owe them some kind of emotional performance. Most people panic in that moment. They rush to fix their image. They try to clarify what they really meant. They give long emotional speeches trying to convince the manipulator to see their side. But here's the trap. You're already playing by their rules. You've already given them the power to decide whether you're worthy of being heard or understood. And that's exactly where they want you. But silence? Silence breaks the game. Silence is refusal. It's a statement louder than any argument you could ever make. It says, I see what you're trying to do and I'm not playing. Standing firm, holding eye contact if needed, and letting them sit in the tension they've created. No explaining, no defending, just stillness. And the longer you hold that silence, the more uncomfortable they become. Because manipulators aren't used to facing their own words without someone scrambling to absorb the blow. And something interesting starts to happen when you stay silent. They begin to reveal themselves. They start filling the silence with more words, exposing their tactics in real time. They start grasping for control, getting louder, more dramatic, more desperate. Why? Because they can feel the power slipping away from them. They realize that their manipulation only works if you respond the way they expect. But when you don't, they lose their footing. The mask starts to crack. The Stoics understood this principle well. Epictetus taught that if someone succeeds in provoking you, it's because you allowed yourself to be provoked. In other words, you volunteered to lose control. Silence, on the other hand, is an act of mastery. It keeps you in command of yourself. It sends the message that you're not here to perform, to beg, or to prove anything. You're not trapped in their game. You're standing above it. And make no mistake, this kind of silence isn't easy. It takes courage to sit with the discomfort. It takes discipline to resist the urge to fill the space with nervous words. But when you do, you shift the power dynamic entirely. You move from being their emotional puppet to being an immovable force. You show them, without saying a single word, that they have no power here. And that's when you become someone they can no longer manipulate. Number 2, recognizing manipulators thrive on reaction. The second strategy builds directly on the first, and it's something most people never stop to consider. Manipulators don't actually need you to agree with them. They don't even need you to like them. All they need is for you to react. Any reaction, whether it's anger, fear, defensiveness, or frustration, feeds their game. And the more emotionally charged your reaction is, the more control they have. Because now you're no longer thinking clearly. You're no longer grounded in your values. You're spinning in their reality, not your own. The manipulator's goal is simple: to trigger you emotionally so you lose your balance. They want you chasing their approval, defending your reputation, or proving that you're not the villain they've made you out to be. Why? Because while you're busy reacting, they're busy controlling the frame. They decide what the conversation is about. They decide who looks like the problem. And more often than not, you end up playing right into their hands, exposing your emotions, your weaknesses, and your insecurities for them to use against you later. This is why emotional detachment is such a powerful skill. When you recognize that your reaction is the prize they're hunting for, you start to take that power back. You stop giving them access to your emotional buttons. You begin to see the game as it really is, not a fight for truth, but a test of control. And the one who controls their emotions the longest always wins. Think about it. How many times have you walked away from an argument with a manipulative person feeling worse than before? Not because they had better facts, but because they pulled you into emotional chaos. They made you feel small, powerless, or guilty. And you left the conversation feeling like you'd lost something you couldn't quite explain. That's the power of reaction. They don't win by proving you wrong. They win by making you feel like you've already lost. But the moment you stop reacting, the game collapses. You reclaim your clarity. You begin to see through their tactics. You stop defending yourself and start observing them. You watch how they escalate when you don't bite. You notice how their energy shifts when you refuse to give them what they want. And eventually, they run out of moves. Because without your reaction, their manipulation loses all of its power. Stoic wisdom reminds us that we are disturbed not by things, but by the views we take of things. In other words, your emotional response isn't caused by what they say. It's caused by how you choose to interpret it. And when you choose to remain centered, to hold your frame, and to let their words pass through you without sticking, you become untouchable. You become the one in control. So the next time someone tries to bait you into an emotional reaction, remember this: the less you respond, the less power they have. And the more you stay grounded in your own clarity, the more they reveal who they really are. Number 3, truth as disruption. Manipulative people live in illusions. Lies they tell about you, about themselves, and about the situation. They craft stories designed to make you doubt yourself, question your memory, and feel like you're somehow the one at fault. It's not about facts to them, it's about control. They twist reality into whatever suits their narrative, and if you're not careful, you'll start to believe it. You'll begin to wonder if maybe you are the problem. Maybe you are being unreasonable. That's how deep their deception runs. But here's what they never expect: truth. Real, unshakable truth. See, truth has a way of cutting through manipulation like nothing else can. It exposes the game for what it is. It shatters the false reality they've built. When you stand firmly in what is true, without trying to convince them, without trying to make them accept it, but simply knowing it for yourself, you become incredibly dangerous to their tactics, because truth makes their manipulation visible. The key here is to stop arguing. Stop trying to make them agree with your truth. You don't need their agreement. You need your own clarity. You need to know in the deepest part of your mind what actually happened, what you actually said, who you actually are. When you hold on to that truth silently and powerfully, you disrupt their entire strategy. Because they can only control you if you start doubting what you know is real. Sometimes this means speaking the truth once, calmly and clearly, and then stepping back. Other times it means saying nothing at all, but refusing to let their version of the story take up space in your mind. It means anchoring yourself in what you know to be real, even if they roll their eyes, mock you, or try to make you feel stupid for standing your ground. Because here's the thing, they don't fear being proven wrong. They fear you no longer needing to explain yourself. Think about it. Manipulators survive by keeping you uncertain, by making you chase their approval, by making you doubt your own memory or judgment. But when you stop chasing, when you stop doubting, when you simply stand rooted in the truth and let their lies fall flat, they lose their grip on you. They realize they can no longer bend your reality. And in that moment, the game ends. Stoic wisdom teaches us that the truth is simple. It is the lies that are complicated. When you refuse to get tangled in their complications, when you stop trying to convince them of what they already know deep down, you reclaim your power. You become the one thing manipulators cannot handle. Someone who sees clearly, speaks plainly, and no longer plays along with their twisted narrative. So, remember, you don't have to shout the truth. You don't have to argue for it. You just have to know it, stand in it, and let the silence do the rest. Number 4, refusing to play the game. One of the most disorienting things about dealing with toxic and manipulative people is how they set the rules. Rules you never agreed to. Rules you didn't even realize you were playing by. But once you start feeling like you have to prove yourself. You have to explain what you meant. You have to fix their distorted view of you. You feel trapped, scrambling for their approval, even when deep down you know something feels off. This is the game they've designed. It's not about truth. It's not about resolution. It's about keeping you chasing something they'll never give you: validation, closure, or peace. Every word you say becomes ammunition they can twist. Every defense you offer becomes another opening they can exploit. And the more you play, the more they tighten their grip. Because they don't actually care about resolving anything. They care about keeping you hooked, keeping you reactive, and keeping you emotionally tangled. That's why the strongest move you can make is to refuse to play entirely. This doesn't mean you back down. It doesn't mean you let them win. It means you step outside the emotional labyrinth they've built for you. You stop trying to fix what they've distorted. You stop trying to make them understand you. You stop explaining yourself to people who aren't interested in hearing the truth in the first place. And here's what they never expect: you walking away mid-game. You setting boundaries without making a big announcement. You simply going silent, going still, and withdrawing your emotional energy completely. This is where your real power is. Because manipulators can only manipulate what you keep putting on the table. Take it off the table, and they have nothing left to work with. You don't owe anyone an explanation for protecting your peace. You don't need to justify why you're no longer engaging in their emotional circus. You don't have to give them the satisfaction of watching you unravel. You step back, you disconnect. You leave their words hanging in the air without a reaction. And in that silence, you remind yourself that you are not responsible for their narrative. The Stoics had a word for this: apatheia, the disciplined calm that comes from emotional detachment. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that his peace was his responsibility, not something anyone else could give or take away. He wrote, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say or do, only what you do. This is what it means to stop playing the game. It means you stop seeking approval from people who benefit from your confusion. You stop fighting battles that were designed to drain you. You walk away, not as a victim, but as someone who finally sees the setup for what it is, a game rigged to keep you powerless. And when you refuse to play, you don't just disrupt their strategy, you end it. Because when you're no longer emotionally invested in proving anything to them, they lose their grip on you completely. And you walk away with your clarity, your dignity, and your peace fully intact." Number 5. Clarity as the antidote. Toxic people have one goal: to keep you in the fog. The longer you stay confused, the easier you are to manipulate. They twist facts, rewrite history, and use subtle tactics to make you question your own memory, your own emotions, and even your own worth. Over time, you stop trusting yourself. You second-guess your decisions. You wonder if maybe they're right and you're just overreacting. This is exactly where they want you, lost in a mental fog, disconnected from your own clarity. But clarity, real, grounded clarity, is the antidote to every manipulative game they play. Because when you see the situation for what it is, when you strip away the emotional chaos and face reality with brutal honesty, their power collapses. Clarity means looking at what's actually happening, not what they say is happening, not what you wish was happening, but what's real, right now, in front of you. And this requires courage. Because sometimes the truth is uncomfortable. Sometimes it forces you to face your own blind spots, like the ways you've tolerated mistreatment, made excuses for them, or ignored red flags because you hoped things would get better. But that's where your freedom starts. You can't fix what you refuse to see. You can't break free from what you keep pretending isn't a problem. Clarity demands that you stop lying to yourself first. When you start seeing things clearly, you also begin to recognize the tactics they use on you. You start noticing the way they shift blame. You see how they twist your words. You spot the patterns, the guilt trips, the gaslighting, the emotional bait. And the more you recognize these patterns, the harder it becomes for them to trap you again. Because once you see the game, you can't unsee it. This is why self-reflection is one of the most powerful tools you have. The Stoics practiced it daily. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal every night, reviewing his thoughts, his actions, and his emotional responses. He wasn't trying to be perfect. He was training himself to see clearly, to remove the fog, to separate what was in his control from what wasn't. You have to do the same. You have to ask yourself the hard questions. What do I know is true here? What evidence do I have? What is this person really showing me through their actions, not their words? And most importantly, what am I pretending not to see because I don't want to face the discomfort of changing the situation? Clarity makes manipulation impossible. Because when you know who you are, when you know what's real, and when you trust your own perception, you stop being easy to control. You stop chasing explanations. You stop needing their approval. You stand grounded in what you know to be true. And when you reach that level of clarity, you don't need to argue, explain, or defend. You simply move through life with confidence, knowing exactly who you're dealing with and exactly who you are. That is what makes you untouchable. Number 6. Distinguishing patience from passivity. There's a dangerous lie that many people believe when dealing with toxic or manipulative individuals. The lie that patience means putting up with anything. That being the bigger person means tolerating disrespect, staying silent forever, or endlessly giving second chances. But this isn't patience. This is passivity. And passivity is exactly what manipulators want from you. Because the longer you sit still, hoping they'll change, the more they can tighten their control over your mind, your emotions, and your life. Patience, on the other hand, is something entirely different. Patience is strategic. It's knowing when to wait without reacting. It's holding back not because you're afraid, but because you're preparing. It's observing their patterns long enough to understand exactly who you're dealing with, and exactly when it's time to act. The Stoics believed in patience but not in being passive. They trained themselves to endure what they could not control, while preparing to take clear, decisive action when the right moment came. Toxic people exploit the confusion between these two. They'll accuse you of being impatient when you set boundaries. They'll call you cold or heartless when you finally walk away. They'll weaponize your kindness, turning your silence into their playground. But here's what they don't expect: you using your silence on purpose, not as surrender, but as preparation. They don't expect you to be studying them. They don't expect you to be collecting clarity. They don't expect you to reach a point where you stop hoping they'll change and start planning how you will. Patience is a powerful tool when it's backed by clear intention. It gives you time to strengthen your boundaries. It gives you time to reconnect with your values. It gives you time to build the courage to do what you already know needs to be done. But patience has a limit. There comes a moment when waiting turns into self-betrayal, and that's when you have to stop enduring and start moving. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. In other words, the very challenge you're facing, the manipulative person standing in front of you, isn't just something to endure forever. It's an invitation to grow. It's a test of your strength, your clarity, and your commitment to yourself. So don't confuse endless waiting with wisdom. Don't confuse silent suffering with strength. Use patience wisely. Use it to gather information, to build your inner resilience, and to choose your moment carefully. But when that moment comes, when you know deep down that the game needs to move, set the boundary, walk away, protect your peace without apology. Because true patience isn't about staying forever. It's about knowing when enough is enough. Number 7, enduring the storm. The moment you finally pull away from a manipulative person, you can almost feel the tension in the air shift. You might expect relief. You might hope they'll finally leave you alone. But that's rarely how it plays out. In fact, the moment you stop playing their game, the moment you refuse to react or feed their need for control, is usually the moment they escalate. The manipulator senses they're losing grip on you, and they'll do whatever it takes to pull you back into their web. They might guilt you. They might blame you. They might play the victim. They might suddenly flip the script and act like you are the problem. Or worse, they might become more aggressive, raising their voice, pushing harder, trying to provoke you one last time. This is the storm, and it's designed to scare you back into submission, to make you believe you were wrong for setting boundaries, to make you feel selfish, cold, or guilty for protecting your peace. But here's the truth you need to hear. The storm is a sign you're doing the right thing. It's not comfortable, it's not easy, but it's predictable. Manipulative people don't go down quietly. They escalate because they're desperate. They can feel your control slipping through their fingers, and their last hope is to make you emotionally break. So you come back to the old pattern where they win. This is where your resolve is tested. This is where your clarity either holds or crumbles. You have to remind yourself why you started this journey in the first place. You have to remember all the times you felt drained, used, or disrespected. You have to hold the boundary, even when they throw everything they have at you to make you doubt yourself again. The Stoics prepared for these moments. They trained themselves to endure discomfort without losing their inner balance. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." In other words, the storm is external. It only breaks you if you let it inside. You have to expect the storm and face it head on. Stand your ground, don't explain, don't justify, don't defend. Simply hold the boundary and let their desperation run its course. Because the truth is, the storm can't last forever. Manipulators can only escalate for so long before they burn themselves out. And when they realize you're no longer moved, no longer controlled, no longer available for their games, they have no choice but to let go. And when the storm finally passes, you'll find something on the other side that makes it all worth it. Freedom. Freedom from their emotional traps. Freedom from the confusion. Freedom from the exhausting cycle that kept you stuck for so long. And in that freedom, you'll realize something powerful. You never needed them to change. You only needed the strength to stop letting them in. The truth is, toxic and manipulative people can only control you if you let them. They don't win because they're smarter. They don't win because they're stronger. They win because they bait you into fighting battles you were never meant to fight. They make you defend yourself, explain yourself, and prove yourself until you're drained and defeated. But when you stop reacting, when you stop playing their game, when you stand in silence, in clarity, in your own truth, they lose their grip on you completely. Stoic philosophy doesn't teach you to fight louder. It teaches you to see clearly, to protect your peace, to stand in your power without needing anyone's approval. The moment you realize you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to, you start moving differently. You start living with unshakable control. You stop giving away your energy to people who don't deserve it, and most importantly, you reclaim your mind, your clarity, and your freedom. If this video helped you see the game for what it really is, and you're ready to learn more Stoic strategies to protect your mind and take back your power, make sure to subscribe to the channel right now. This is just the beginning. There's so much more to learn, and I'll be right here to guide you every step of the way.